it was being covered by a reduction in this budget. Did I miss?
When we were told to cut our budget, I
Mhm.
had most of my collection portion of it, absorb most of mine. There's only one other person in my office, so I didn't wanna hit the salary portion. So I hit it in my collectors because I had a vacancy, and I could absorb some of it through my vacancy, because nobody was getting paid for a few months. And what we had proposed as a budget for FY ten was actually my predecessor's, salary and not mine, so there was a difference there too.
You're talking about the current fiscal year.
Yes, compared to
Mhm.
2011.
Well, I guess I'm looking at the top sheet in collections, and then under level funded, it's 191,595. And what you're proposing is 200,000, that's, almost $9,000 more.
Well, yes, it is.
And I'm trying to
because-
understand, okay.
Well, on the professional services, I went up on my professional services for my collection budget,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to go up on my travel budget. So that's what went up to, that's why it's almost $200,000.
But you're off, what you're saying, what your offset is, on your treasurer's budget, you're looking for the level services. And your reduction's gonna come by level funding your collector's budget, correct? That's what you want us to look at.
No, that's not what it
No,
says.
No, to level, if we were gonna level fund my treasurers, then I would be taking it out of my collectors. But if we level service, then I would need the additional money.
I guess I'm looking at it a little differently.
Okay,
I look at the difference between level services and level funded on both budgets.
okay,
And on the treasurer's budget, I see a little over $3,000 more than level funded.
correct.
And on the collector's budget, I see 9,000 more.
Right, but her level funded on collectors is actually about $2,000 less than her FY ten
Under
budget.
current fiscal year.
Ah,
It's down
okay, then the
$1,800.
current budget, okay.
Right.
Yeah, that still doesn't,
Current budget is $1,800 more than what she's proposing for level funded.
yeah, okay.
And then
No, but I'm looking at level services saying there's 9,000, I'm looking at, if there's $9,000 more that she's looking for. I'm trying to understand what that is.
The majority of it is for the tax title account, and there was an extra $500 in the travel account.
Okay,
Because I have to, drive the deposits to the bank now
okay,
on a daily basis.
all right.
So that's what the additional charge for the travel is.
How did the funds go to the bank before?
The police used to take them?
Why don't they now? Why don't they now?
Because the police department issued a directive that the department no longer do that service.
They issued a directive?
No, the police chief did,
Why is that?
because he didn't have sufficient staffing with the
Oh,
reductions in
come on, the
personnel.
police cars are here all the time. Give
I'm
me a
just
break.
here reporting to you what
Okay.
I understand.
I think we respectfully disagree.
We do.
Swing by and go to the drive-through. I don't-
It's gotta stop.
I was not intimately involved in those discussions.
I-
The
I
finance
didn't say
director
you
was,
were.
and he's not here this evening.
Okay.
Perhaps that's a question of him, Mr. Chairman, not of me.
So,
Wasn't questioning you.
Thank you.
but I think we can address it, right?
I'll make sure he does. Thank you.
Other questions for the treasurer?
Is it?
No,
Huh?
no,
No, what?
no, not for the treasurer, no.
Oh. Joe?
No,
Oh, okay. Jeff?
No.
I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank
you've
Thank you,
been
Mary.
doing a great job over the last
Yes.
fiscal year for collecting things.
One thing is that I did get, previous budget cycle, kind of an update of where we were with delinquencies. And it would be nice if we could get that updated and get it to Greg.
I'm sorry, what was that?
This is on the collections delinquencies.
The tax title
Yeah.
accounts?
No, if we looked at those, in tax title, right? It was a growing number. And then last year, apparently, it's very clear that effort was made, had to have come down. And it would be nice to see how that trend is going, follow it.
I know as of this week, we're advertising for our tax title accounts, and it's
Mhm.
approximately 44, and again, advertising this Thursday, excuse me.
And the other was at the, because it's year end, is where we are with our commitment versus collections for tax bills.
We'll get that information for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Ann.
Debt and employee benefits, Craig? Craig, do you want to let Jean slip in first, or is there a reason for?
Let me just go through the debt budget. I
Okay.
think it's important to kind of go through it and follow a schedule. There was a copy of the debt schedule from the finance director that was in your packet this evening. Excuse me, was in your packet over the weekend.
Yeah.
You refer to it, it's a memo, March 11th, 2010. Let me explain the debt budget, because it's one of those items that's a bit complex. The total debt budget is comprised of three items. It's comprised of exempt debt. And exempt debt, if you refer to the detail sheet, the second sheet in, and you'll see that there are several items that are listed with a small O next to them. That means overrides or debt exclusions. Just to read off what those are, that's police station renovations, North Reading High School renovation, Smith property acquisition, Batchelder School renovations, Little School renovations, Cleveland High School modulars, Hood School renovations, and then modular classrooms, 10/2006. So those are considered to be exempt debt. The second item is non-exempt debt. That's everything else that gets voted by the town. And you see the listing of what those items are. And then the final piece is short-term interest. So all of those items taken together is, if you look at the detail sheet, again, the second sheet that's in that shows all of the specific funding requests, the three of those items total up fiscal year 2011 proposed $4,036,097. Represents about a $202,000 increase from the previous fiscal year. And you'll note that that's, I can tell you that that's spread amongst all three of those line items. So the general trend is our debt service at this time is decreasing, and I don't think that's any great surprise. However, going forward, we would estimate that the debt levels will go back up, and the reason for that is that we have, the last time we did a permanent borrowing was in September of 2008. You recall, we had some very, very favorable rates at that time. I think it was about 3.8%. A week after the town went out to bid on that debt, the financial markets collapsed. And as a matter of fact, cities and towns had no access to any debt money or capital money for a period of several months. We do have the items that were approved both at October town meeting, October '09 town meeting, which needs to be borrowed. And those amounts are included in the memo that the finance director has given you. He's indicated that the short-term debt will be increasing to $159,988. And what we've done is we've made some assumptions on permanently borrowing certain items that were approved at the October town meeting, which was $895,000, that was the aggregate total. And we've made some assumptions about interest rates. And so those amounts get rolled into what we consider to be our short-term debt service number that you see here this evening of $159,988. Going forward, we've also had to make some assumptions in terms of when we do permanent borrowing, we do temporary borrowing, what will be the interest rates. We are considerably higher than where we would have been the last time we did borrowings. Keep in mind that what governs interest rates are a couple of things. Number one is your bond rating. We're an A1 rated community. If you look at our peer communities, when they did the survey a few years back, benchmarking study, one of the nice things that was done in that study is it identified communities that are most closely aligned with North Reading. And the majority of those 20 communities are A1 communities like we are. There are a few of them that were AA rated communities, but the majority of them were A1. So that's the first factor that gets considered in terms of determining what the interest rate is on borrowing. The second item is the condition of the financial markets and the trends within those financial markets. So obviously, as the trends are, banks become more cautious about borrowing money, the market becomes less competitive than it may have been in the past, what we would see is increased interest rates. And we would see those both on short-term and long-term interest rates. Going forward, we'll project that our band cost for 2011 will be in the range of 3%. And we'll estimate that our long-term borrowing cost could be as high as 6.5%. So again, within the short-term number that I gave you earlier, those assumptions get carried forward. We already know that in terms of what we've borrowed to date and what our permanent borrowings are, we already are aware of what our interest rates are. The only risk remains is when we put these items out to bid, and I expect we'll do so in September of 2010, what those interest rates will be. So that's our debt schedule, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about it. It's pretty much cut and dry. As you know, there's a subsidy that comes from the capital or debt stabilization fund on the revenue side to partially offset some of the costs that are associated here. And I would anticipate that going forward, we'll continue to have a subsidy coming from the debt or capital stabilization fund for the same purpose. Just to give you some numbers, for this year, the amount of the subsidy was $655,000. They estimate that the subsidy for next fiscal year is in the range of about $460,000. So the subsidy amount will go down. My recollection was the balance in that account is about $1,350,000. So we do have some capacity to fund that. One of the strategies that we'll have going into spring town meeting is to look to supplement that account with other available sources of funds.
Greg, one of the things I'd like to see with this list is that there be a separate subtotal for override debt.
Right.
And regular debt, because by looking at this number, kind of hard to say. What?
Yeah, it doesn't show.
It's hard to say which one is going up or down. Obviously, we know that the override debt should be going down.
Yeah. I actually have that number if you want to,
Yes.
The exempt debt is going, this year's exempt debt is $2,774,723. And the exempt debt is dropping to $2,742,669.
Could you repeat that number again?
The first number is
No, the second one.
second number is $2,742,669.
And that leaves, did you do the other, or?
And the non-exempt
Mhm.
is going from $2,276,668 to $1,133,441.
Well, how do you account for such a steep drop?
We're retiring debt, Bob. I wouldn't say it's a steep drop. The total decrease